My guest today is Ty West. Emerging from a group of filmmakers that include Joe Swanberg, Greta Gerwig, and the Duplass brothers, West is an independent filmmaker with an amazing range as writer, director, producer, editor, and occasional actor. Half artist, half engineer, he's developed a truly singular style that challenges contemporary expectations. He's a master of building atmosphere and suspense while the audience settle in and grow invested in his characters before yanking the rug out. His earliest efforts, The House of the Devil and The Innkeepers, became instant classics. He challenges himself with each new project. The Sacrament is a found footage thriller based on the Jonestown Massacre, and In a Valley of Violence is a Western. In television, West directed episodes of Wayward Pines, The Exorcist, Tales from the Loop, Scream, and Them. In 2022, he released X and Pearl, two of the most exciting genre films of the decade. A third installment, Maxxxine, will soon follow. Ty most admires directors whose styles are unique only to them, like the Coen brothers, Terry Gilliam, or Spielberg. Ty has achieved this in his own work. His style is unmistakable, and the release of any new Ty West film is an event. Ty, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you for the introduction. I look forward to talking to you.
Before we get started, I wanted to congratulate you on becoming a new dad. Your fiance is an electronic dance music producer, DJ, and singer who's professionally known as Alice in Wonderland, but her last name is Schaller. She jokes with when you're both married, her initials will be AW. Aw. Let me know the sizes, and I'll make sure you get a couple of shirts.
All right. Thank you.
Your mother, Noreen, was born in Newark, and your father, Donald West, was born in Georgetown. Noreen worked as a teller at Delaware Trust Company, and in November 1976, your parents were married. After a honeymoon in Barbados, they moved to Wilmington, Delaware. Your dad went by the nickname Buzz. 2 years after graduating from the University of Delaware, he began work as a real estate appraiser for Patterson, Schwartz and Associates. He would excel in his work. He became a member of the Society of Real Estate Appraisers. By 1986, he was vice president at Patterson, Schwartz and Associates. Then in 1990, he was named the president at Delaware Appraisal Group. Your parents had a house on Rodney Street when you were born in 1980. They moved a few years later to a two-story house near Wilmington Friends School, where you spent most of your childhood. You were an only child and born Timon West, but you go by Ty. What were you like as a child, and what was it like growing up in Wilmington?
That was intense. Yeah, I mean, Wilmington is sort of like a little small. I mean, it's a city, and it's sort of a city next to a rural area. And I was like any other kid who grew up. And I went to school, I hung out with friends, I played sports, and I got interested in movies. And I think like the video store was my main. I mean, I went to the movies a lot, but the video store was probably where I watched the most movies and got kind of obsessed with them. But I was like, I think for the most part, a pretty normal kid, other than the fact that I guess I liked scary movies at a really young age.
Wasn't Timon your mother's maiden name? Where did the name come from?
It is her maiden name, and it's Irish. And so but that's about the extent that I know of that. Mm-hmm. I have this sinking feeling that you will now know more about my life than I am going to, because even it's all the stuff you just said is like, I do know all of those things, but I have not thought about them for a while, and I don't know them that well. So I'm certainly intrigued to see where this is headed.
Before the influence of movies, what scared you the most as a child? Was there a ghost in the attic or a monster under the bed?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't really scared of too much stuff like that. Yeah, I don't have a lot of those stories. I was more just, I was really intrigued by weird stuff. So I didn't have, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I feel like once I started watching movies and I saw something like The Shining or something, like I was scared that the two little girls would show up in the hallway or something like that. I remember like Pet Sematary scared me. And then I was like afraid I was going to come home and like Zelda would be there or things like that, because I saw things at too young of age. But other than that, I didn't really have the like, oh, there's something in the closet and stuff. I wasn't that kind of kid.
Many kids are first introduced to horror through fairy tales or children's story like Hansel and Gretel or Three Billy Goats Gruff. Was there a particular fairy tale or children's story that scared you or fascinated you as a child?
I don't know. I like a Christmas Carol, which is basically a ghost story. I think when I was young, like I read that, and my dad would read that with me usually once a year, and I always just kind of like dug that, and that's that's a ghost story, and so that's probably the first thing that's like in the ballpark of what you're asking.
Hmm.
I mean, I probably was familiar with all of the fairy tales that you're talking about, but I don't remember any of them sticking out to me in any way other than they just normally would. I mean, those books, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, when I was a kid, like I used to like those, and those were there was the one like the Bloody Fingers one and stuff like that story from there. I remember those having kind of an effect on me.
Hmm. You grew up hanging out and riding your bike with friends. I heard you messed around with Ouija boards from time to time, and you snuck into the basement of an abandoned mental hospital. The first movies you saw in the theater were The Burbs, directed by a former guest and friend of the show, the great Joe Dante, and also Clue, which is one of my favorite comedies. Most of your movies came from the 5 for 5 Friday rentals from your video store, Video Frequency, or Vix Video. There, you'd gravitate towards the creepy cover art of Evil Dead 2 or Peter Jackson's Bad Taste in the horror section. I understand seeing the twins from The Shining left a mark on you at an early age, which you just mentioned. Did your parents have any restrictions on what you were able to watch as a kid? And is it true a video clerk shamed your mother into not letting you rent Faces of Death?
Yeah, that is true. So well, the 5 for 5 was at Cinema Video, which is the VIX place that you're talking about. Video Frequency was a different place, and that was the first one. Yeah, at a different video store down at the beach where we would go in the summer, I tried to rent Faces of Death, and the lady was not having it. Probably rightfully so. And no, I didn't really have any restrictions. I mean, my parents weren't like horribly irresponsible or anything, but they were not that concerned about me watching movies. I'm sure there was a limit to how far it would go, and I don't know that I pushed the limit that much. But I remember that when I would have people come babysit me, like teenagers would babysit me when my parents would go out, they would see movies babysitting me that they weren't allowed to see. So like my 15-year-old babysitter would watch like Nightmare on Elm Street with me, and they weren't allowed to watch that at home and things like that.
Mhm.
So I was just, for whatever reason, my parents just weren't worried about that messing me up.
Mhm. Now that you're a father, what sort of restrictions do you see having for your son?
It's too soon to tell. He's just a little baby.
6.5 miles north of your childhood home, just across the border in Chadsford, Pennsylvania, lies Cosart Road, known by locals as Devil's Road. And there's a mansion in the nearby woods known as the Cult House. Rumors of cult activity have made this house a legend. The estate was once owned by the wealthy DuPont family, and rumors circulated of satanic rituals taking place there, with their sacrificial victims being disposed of in the surrounding woods. Cosart Road, the narrow 2 mile stretch of winding lane that leads to the house, shares its infamy. The most unmistakable detail about the road is the trees. The tall, slender trees that line the roadway all lean away from the cult house. Not just the branches, but the entire trunks of the trees slant at a distinctive angle that grows wider as the road goes on. The road soon leads to a notorious tree with bulging, exposed roots. This is the skull tree. When viewed from the front, the roots look remarkably like a human skull. Further down the road, drivers can catch a glimpse of the cult's house itself. The massive stone manor is situated on a sloping hill about 200 yards from the road, nestled among thick evergreens. The DuPont family owned a great deal of land in the area, including this one at one time, but not anymore. It is now owned by an older man, well liked by his neighbors, and who doesn't care for the attention. The county has made Cosart Road private with no trespassing signs posted throughout, but it doesn't stop people from trying to see the cult house. There's no evidence of any satanic rituals, but police did find 3 bodies dumped in a group grave on the grounds on New Year's Eve, 1978. The bodies were victims of the Johnston brothers, 3 career criminals responsible for the murders of 4 junior members of their prolific burglary ring, along with a 15-year-old girl. The killers feared their victims were about to cooperate with the police, and they were killed. Did you ever hear about the Devil's Road or the Cult House, or were there any other urban legends you heard about growing up in Wilmington?
Yeah, no, I've been there. Uh, I did not know about the bodies thing and what you talked about with the people dying and the criminal thing. That was new information to me. I know exactly where the road is. I've been on the road many times. The trees do go like away from the road. It is weird. There is a big tree that has a big hole in it, and people have like spray painted like pentagrams and stuff. So it's very it's a very like high school I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if it is anymore. When I was like in high school, it was a very like high school place to go and be sort of mischievous because of the vibe. It's not really in the middle of nowhere, but it's basically in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know that much about the house. I feel like the house part of your description is probably oversold, but the road is, you're pretty dead on with what the road is like.
Mhm. So you attended Tatnall School in Wilmington. Go Hornets. Graham Resnick was your best friend growing up, who went on to become a director and your sound mixer. I understand you'd hang out, ride bikes, and have movie marathon sleepovers watching Tom Cruise movies and films like Monster Squad or BMX Bandits. I heard you even started a punk band. Your first narrative writing was drawing gory Mortal Kombat style comic books. The comic books would evolve into filming G.I. Joes with a VHS camera. By high school, you were shooting and starring in each other's short films, edited with 2 VHS players. Do any of these comic books or short films still exist?
I don't know if any of the drawings did. They could be in my parents' attic somewhere. I don't think so, but it's possible. Of the short films, I don't know. Some of my ones from film school might. The one that Graham is in that we did on the 2 that I put together as you described on 2 VCRs, that was called Out of Order, and I would like to think that there's a VHS of it somewhere in my parents' house, but I don't actually know. Maybe Graham has I doubt it. I don't know. I bet there might be a VHS of it somewhere. I'm not sure.
Junior year, you toured art galleries in New York City on a field trip with your class and art teacher, Kyle Ripp. You said you didn't do great in school. In fact, your first A came from a film appreciation class offered by your teacher, Bruce Chipman, who says he recognized your talent then and wasn't surprised by your future success. What were you like in high school, and how much of your high school experience informs who you are today?
I was not particularly interested in school in high school. I was interested in more music than movies, and I was in a band, as you said, and I wanted to do that because that was fun. And a lot of my friends were in the sort of scene that were in sort of like hardcore music and punk music and things like that. And that was that was like my interest, I suppose. And then movies I had always liked my whole life, and I liked then. And it wasn't until probably Dr. Chipman's class where I was like, oh, maybe you could make movies, and that's something you could do. Because the idea of, from Wilmington, Delaware, certainly like in the 90s, the idea of like going off and becoming a filmmaker is a very foreign idea. It's not something that like you don't really have a like, oh, there's 3 other people I know that went and did that. Like the number of people that did that is 0. So the thought of doing that was very confusing to everyone, but I don't know, I didn't have anything else to do, and I didn't seem like I was going to be in a band for that much longer because everyone was graduating high school that I was in the band with. And so I thought I would give movies a go.
In an age of bullies, active shooter drills, and COVID lockdowns, do you think horror movies can provide catharsis for teenagers coping with these real world fears?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's such a different world in a way than I would grow up as it. So my perspective of being a teenager with all of this stuff going on, I only know what it's like to look sort of back at that, or look at that as someone who's 40. I don't, it's hard for me to say what it would actually feel like to be that. But I'm sure like the anxiety or fear that comes with all of these real world things, that generally speaking, the value of horror movies is to be able to like go experience something kind of scary, kind of creepy, kind of anxious, or that could stir up emotions like paranoia, anxiety, but that it's not real. So then you can kind of turn it off when you go home, versus real life where it's like, oh, this could really just be, be a real bummer all the time. So I think there will always be this sort of escapism outlet to experience something scary in a way that like actually can't hurt you. Like if you go play a video game where people are getting shot, or you see a movie where people are getting shot, that's a very different experience than actually worrying about being shot, even if the idea of worrying about being shot is on your mind as a person in America.
What was the name of your punk band, and do you believe more songs have been written about love, lust, or heartbreak?
I don't know which ones have been more written. I was in two bands. I was in a band called The Antics, and then I was in a band called Good to Go.
Yeah. Your senior project was the short film Out of Order, which you mentioned earlier, about a student in detention who bleeds to death from a nosebleed that won't stop, and starred your friend Graham Resnick. It got you both into film school. You attended the School of Visual Arts in New York. There's no need to go into it, but it was around this time when you were profiled in the 2001 fall issue of Teen People. Is that correct?
That is true. I mean, profile is pretty generous, but yeah.
What was the story behind that?
What? I don't really know, but I think that for whatever reason, that magazine must need content, and so they had people standing outside of the school. And my friend Sean and I, who was in the Roost and Trigger Man, we were just walking outside, and they stopped us and said, "Hey, would you want to do this thing?" And we were like, "Sure." And so that's what happened.
You didn't have mentors per se, but there were several pivotal people in the early part of your career. Would you briefly explain the impact of your teacher Kelly Reichert, horror icon Larry Fessenden, and festival producer Matt Dentler had in your path, from selling diesel jeans at the mall to premiering your first film at South by Southwest Film Festival?
Yeah. Well, Kelly Reichardt, who's a really great filmmaker, she was teaching a class at the School of Visual Arts the same year that I went there. She was only there for 1 year. It just happened to be the year that I was there. And we got along, and I had seen her films because the video store you mentioned, Cinema Video, the Vic's place, they always had all of the sort of newest indie movies. And so like I had seen her movie, and I had seen a movie called Habit. And Habit was this vampire movie that Larry Fessenden wrote, directed, edited, and started. And Larry Fessenden had acted in and produced Kelly's movie. So she mentioned that she knew him, and I liked his movie. And she said, well, he'll come in and talk to the class one day. And I just kept bugging her, and she just eventually was like, I don't know if the class cares, so here's his phone number, just call him. And so I went and had coffee with Larry, and we got to know each other. And because of that, I helped him on a intern for him, helping him put out a DVD of one of his movies, like organizing the behind the scenes footage. And then he saw my short films and liked them, and that ultimately led to him financing the Roost. And so I mean, Kelly was a great help there, and Larry was a great help there. And without the two of them, there is no, like, I would not have, I don't know. I mean, maybe I would have figured out a way, but like that was my direct way of how it happened. And then Matt Dentler at the time was programming for South by Southwest, and he saw the Roost, and he programmed it. And so if having met Kelly introduced me to Larry, and Larry was someone who was willing to give me money to make a movie, to which there was no one else on earth that would do that. And then Matt Dentler saw that movie and thought, there's something to this movie. I'm going to let this play in a like real film festival in front of real people. And then that happened. And then we sold that movie, and that the snowball started rolling there. And then it was kind of up to me from then on to try to keep it rolling. But I mean, I'm very fortunate that those three people were like, that was the way in the door for me.
Is it true you named the sheriff in your movie X after Matt Dentler?
That's true.
I love your first.
I don't know this. You might not branch out of horror that much, but if you ever see certain Joe Swanberg movies or David Lowery movies, you may see a Sheriff Dentler pop up, or somebody named Dentler pop up in their films as well. Because we all were as were the Duplass brothers. I don't know if they put Dentler in their movies, but they might. We were all at South by Southwest in 2005, and we all kind of look back to like we all became very good friends, and we're all still making movies to this day. And I just literally. Joe and David were here watching Maxxxine a couple days ago, and it does all stem from Matt Dentler thinking like, Dead Room is an interesting movie. This guy David Lowery might be up to something, and Hissing on the Mouth is an interesting movie. Joe Swanberg might be up to something, or The Roost is an interesting movie. So, I mean, I'm still close friends with these people, and I would not have known them if it wasn't for Matt Dentler, who is now helping a man named Martin Scorsese get movies made.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he works at Apple.
Gosh, what? That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love your first film, The Roost. The creepy shocker about zombie bats was shot around Wilmington, Kennett Square and Unionville in 2003. It premiered at South by Southwest. Can you tell me about the first screening of The Roost? Is it true you and Graham were halfway through the premiere when two guys walked out and made some comments that became an inside joke between you two?
I don't know about the last part of that. So the premiere was at the original Alamo Drafthouse in Austin, downtown, which was a very sort of makeshift space, and it was great. And it was, at the time, it wasn't the only Alamo Drafthouse, but it was the original one. And I had always heard about that, so that was very cool to play there. And the screening went about as good as a screening could go. I don't remember people walking out and saying something, but they may that sounds like something that would happen. And it sounds like something Graham and I would joke about, but I don't remember it happening specifically there. Mostly what I remember is I had been down in Austin, and we were like the poster that you have behind you. We were handing out postcards of that and stickers, and I had these rubber bat rings that we got from like Party City, and I was giving that. So we were just trying to like grassroots it as much as possible. And I remember just sort of being there, and I didn't watch the movie. I was like out in the lobby, sort of like anxiously waiting to see how it went. But it went well, and then that was the sort of beginning of it all, I guess.
Awesome. Trigger Man was filmed around Wilmington for $15,000. On the strength of your first two films, you were asked to write and direct Cabin Fever 2 Spring Fever. The difficulties you endured on this project are covered by interviews from the time. Would you briefly explain what an Alan Smithy project is?
Well, they don't have them anymore because nobody recognizes it. But it used to be that if you're, as a filmmaker or director specifically, if the movie that is finished feels very much not your own and you would not want to be a part of it, you would take a pseudonym, and the pseudonym everybody used was Alan Smithy. And that was sort of you could take your name off a movie, and that was the sort of like the name that everybody used to say, like, I got to disassociate myself for this because it doesn't feel like I'm failing on my own terms here. And I did try to do it on that movie, and I wasn't able to because a series of boring reasons of why you can't, but they don't really do it anymore. Because what happened is everybody found out about the Alan Smithy thing, and then it became a thing, and now like it's not the same. It used to just be like a name no one would notice, and now it's a noticeable name because it became a storied thing. So, but yeah, it was kind of a bummer.
You return with the 1980s period horror masterpiece, The House of the Devil, based on a script you wrote in college based on the satanic panic of the early 1980s. The film doesn't look like the period, it looks of the period. Its cast includes friend of the show Dee Wallace and reunites you with Tom Noonan, who's paired with acting legend Mary Warnoff. Greta Gerwig is on hand to steal all her scenes and eat bad pizza badly. Humble beginnings for the director of this year's blockbuster hit Barbie. Your impeccable eye for casting time periods will show up again in your X trilogy, but Jocelyn Donahue, your lead in The House of the Devil, looks like she stepped out of a scene from The Omen or Rosemary's Baby. The Roost had zombies, and Romero's Night of the Living Dead appears on the television in one scene. Let me ask you, do you prefer fast zombies or slow zombies?
Slow. I am of the slow generation.
You put enormous pressure on yourself to get The House of the Devil right, and lots went wrong in the process. There were false starts with the financing. It was a struggle to find the right house, and the set was almost struck by lightning. Meanwhile, production was put up in a haunted hotel, and the crew was reporting strange things going on. That hotel was the 120-year-old Yankee Peddler Inn, located in Torrington, Connecticut, and became the focus of your next film, The Innkeepers. The movie stars Sarah Paxton and Pat Healy as a couple of slacker ghost hunters working at a haunted hotel over its last weekend open. Kelly McGillis makes an appearance as the inn's final guest. There were crew reports of lights blinking on and doors swinging open on their own. Sarah Paxton says bad dreams woke her at 3 a.m. and she received a strange text warning her away from the third floor. Did you have any strange experiences at the Yankee Peddler?
Yeah, it's sort of a quaint place. It's not that weird of a place, but it I don't necessarily believe in ghosts and whatnot, but it's as close as I've come. That's as close to a haunted place as I could imagine. If haunting is real, then that place is haunted. If it's not real, that's as close to real as it gets. It's just a weird building, and there's a weird energy. And the dreams, I would say, is the strangest part, because it wasn't just Sarah. It was like everybody, including myself, had dreams. And we had them on House of the Devil. And then when we went back for the Innkeepers, it happened again. When that's what was so weird is when we went back there, I remember being on the plane on my way there, and Jacob, the producer, was like, the dreams have already started. And I had forgotten about them. And I was like, oh, wow, that's weird. And so, yeah, it's a strange place.
Wow, that's weird.
Right. I mean, that's why I wrote the movie about it, because it was like we were making House of the Devil, and it was just like every day someone had some weird story about where we were staying.
Wow. After Innkeepers, you appeared in several films like You're Next and Drinking Buddies. You also made memorable contributions, writing and directing segments for the anthology projects, VHS, the 307 AM Project, and the ABCs of Death. Then, in 2013, you write, produce, and direct The Sacrament for producer Eli Roth. The film is a deeply disturbing found footage of a documentary crew embedded with a manipulative cult leader inspired by the true Jonestown Massacre. You shot Savannah, Georgia for South America, and you honed your skills of directing long, powerful scenes with no cutaways. It's a skill you will use with masterful effect with Mia Goth in Pearl. I hear you have the deer head from Innkeepers, the camera from X, and the bottles of cyanide from the Sacrament. What other props do you have, and which is your most prized possession?
I do have all of those. I don't know. I have a bunch of other, I mean, I have a bunch of stuff. I don't know if I have anything here in the office that's really, I mean, I do have things that, like, I don't want to mess up the Maxxxine, but like this is from Maxxxine and things like that. So there's things that are I know. There's things like that, but yeah, I usually take a couple things home. What did I take home from Pearl? I don't remember. I have like the program of the movie she goes to see, and I don't know. I mean, we were in New Zealand, so you can only bring back so much stuff. But I do the camera from X is sitting on our table in the living room, and there's a knife from Maxxxine. I have the knife from Valley of Violence. I have this RJ slate from X. Yeah, I have a bunch of stuff.
Wow, that's awesome. Your next project was a departure from with your Western called In a Valley of Violence for Blumhouse, with a great ensemble cast including Ethan Hawke, James Ransone, John Travolta, Karen Gillan, and two scene stealers, Tysa Farmiga and Jumpy the Dog. This movie delivers the goods as a Western, complete with its own Wilhelm scream, and it's so fun to see your twist on the archetypes. I've been laughing about the line, "Oh, he spit on Gilly," all week. Do you think comedies age better than horror movies, or is it the other way around?
I think it depends on the movie itself. I mean, with that movie, I wanted to make something that was that you would remember scenes, or you would remember lines of dialogue from. Like that was kind of the goal with it. Wanted to make a Western, and it has a sort of traditional Western structure and vibe to it. But I was trying to also interject this sort of like, all of these people in the movies are kind of like dumbasses, and they're all dealing with it in a way that, like, they're in over their heads. And so trying to kind of bring a sense of humor to that, and trying to have these memorable, like, you just spit on Gilly kind of things. That was the goal of it. So I mean, if the line stuck around with you, then that was mission accomplished.
Mission was accomplished.
Yeah.
Jumping the Dog and Tysa worked on two movies together. Yours and Warren Beatty's Howard Hughes movie, Rules Don't Apply. Jumpy could surf, parkour, ride skateboards, or file your taxes. I couldn't say Tysa could do any of those things with any certainty. On February 21st, 2018, Jumpy lost his battle with cancer and passed away. It was a Wednesday. Do you have a favorite memory of your time with Jumpy?
It was awesome. There's so many. Jumpy was a really, and I say this having a dog next to me that I'm very passionate about. But but Jumpy was a really one of a kind dog and was amazing. And Omar, Jumpy's trainer and owner, is like, he's awesome. And he actually worked on Maxxxine a little bit as well. And he's just like a great guy, and his whole family's great. And Jumpy was just so special. Like, it was, from a trick standpoint, you couldn't believe the things that Jumpy could do. I mean, I couldn't put half of it in the movie because it was so absurd that it was like, it would just take you out of the movie, because it was like, this dog was like too amazing. But to spend time with Jumpy, and Jumpy was so friendly and would do all the tricks with you, not just with Omar. And it was just like I feel very lucky to have gotten to spend time with Jumpy, because it was a really special dog.
You sharpen your craft directing 17 episodes of television over the following 6 years. Sensing the genre has gone soft, you have an idea for a slasher film that serves as a love letter to filmmaking. You write a script in 3 weeks and send it to A24. It's a green light, and together you launch one of the most exciting and original horror franchises ever made. Set in 1979, X follows a group of filmmakers shooting their adult film Farmer's Daughter at a farm in rural Texas when one of the elderly property owners tries to reclaim her youth by starting a killing spree. X is influenced by the 70s films Two Lane Blacktop and Don't Look Now, though a van and the Texas setting invite endless comparisons to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I would say X is like Chainsaw in that both films are masterpieces. Stellar performances from each member of the cast lends in no small part to the success of this film. The men, Kid Cudi, Martin Henderson, Owen Campbell, and Stephen Ure, are exceptional, and the ladies are next level. Mia Goth played the dual roles of Maxxxine, and Pearl is a gift. And Jenna Ortega enhances every movie she touches. With Jenna's iconic role as Wednesday Addams and the 1-2 punch of Mia in X, then Pearl, it's easy to overlook the astounding performance from Brittany Snow as Bobby Lynn. I read you asked each actor why they'd want to be in this movie during the audition. Do you remember Brittany's answer, and what made you decide she was this character?
Brittany's answer was, I mean, it'd be better that she tell it to some degree, but her basic answer was that there was a movie in her past that she was going to do that was a really wild movie, and she was really excited to do it. And in the end, she chickened out and didn't do it. And it had always kind of haunted her a little bit. And so she liked the script, and she liked my movies, I think. And she basically was like, maybe this is a chance to, like, this is a big swing. And then she wanted to feel confident that the movie would be worth doing. But I think she just had this chip on her shoulder about what she could do and what she was capable of and what she hadn't had an opportunity lately to do. And I think she just saw this and was just like, I can do this. I want to do this. And I believed her, and I believed her enthusiasm. And she's also just like awesome and a great person. And super talented. So it was just kind of like, I don't know, it just all kind of lined up. And she also did a great audition. Like, she got the humor of the movie.
That's awesome. You've given so many great interviews on these films, so I'll touch on them briefly. You write a prequel script with Mia Goth during a 2-week quarantine in New Zealand. A24 approves it, and Pearl is a go before the first frame of X is shot. X is a masterpiece, and Pearl is a miracle. This movie is a 3-strip Technicolor horror fantasy set on the same family farm 60 years before the events of X. Pearl is a young woman, and we follow her descent into madness, where she first begins to kill. Tandy Wright as Pearl's mother gives a performance as intense as Piper Laurie in Carrie, and Mia Goth's performance rivals Anthony Perkins' performance as Norman Bates in Psycho. The film's climax is an extended, uncut monologue that's both frightening and heartbreaking. Mia Goth delivers a breathtaking performance. It is a travesty she was not recognized for an Academy Award. I understand finding the period vehicles in New Zealand was a challenge. Is it true the World War I truck at the end was owned by Peter Jackson?
Yes, I believe it is. He has a lot. He has as much World War I stuff as any person on Earth, and so I don't remember if it was like right from his house collection or if it was from something he's part of, but it certainly is related for sure.
Wow. X then Pearl stunned and delighted audiences, making your third installment, Maxxxine, the most highly anticipated horror film in years. I know you have to be tight-lipped about everything. Let me ask you this way. You had the idea for Pearl during your quarantine before X. When did you have the idea for Maxxxine, and what can you tell me about the movie?
I had it around the same time. Or I had the basic idea of what like part 3 could be.
Mhm.
Uh, and A24 liked that when they liked Pearl as well, but they were actually more excited about part 3, probably because it's just like I don't know if I would say it's like more commercial per se, but it's like a big 80s movie, you know what I mean? So they were like, oh, that follows up the 70s movie. We get it. But for me, it was important to me that it be part 3 and not part 2. So they were kind of like, we could go make that movie. If X does well, we'll make that Maxxxine movie, and then we can go back and make Pearl. And to me, it was like, no, Maxxxine is better if we make Pearl first, and we do it as this trilogy. And credit to A24, they took the risk, and here we are.
Mhm.
I don't know what I can tell you. I mean, like, it's coming along. I'm almost done editing it, so it's on its way. It's so far so good. But it's kind of like, I don't mind telling you some stuff, but at the same time, it's sort of like the less I think people know, the more. Because I feel like so many movies now, everything about them, and surely whenever the trailer comes out for this movie, they always give away too much, and so
Yeah.
it's kind of like there's something kind of nice about not knowing a lot about it, but.
Yeah, I agree. That's a wow, yeah. Um, I read you may have an idea for another film in the X universe after Maxxxine. Is there another sequel or spinoff brewing?
Maybe. I don't know. There is this one weird asterisk idea that I have that is kind of like if I explained it, it would make sense, but we'll see what happens. Let's get this movie done first. See if people like it. We'll go from there.
Um, I understand you're a huge mixed martial arts fan. At Fantastic Fest in 2014, you debated found footage horror with the festival founder Tim League before entering the boxing ring with him. Tim League was quoted saying, "The chaos we embrace for our events is going to knock people out, much like I'm going to do to Ty West." Boxing is known for trash talk like, "If he dreams he beat me, I want him to wake up and apologize," or "You suck like a suck machine set on suck." Do you have any favorite trash talk lines?
Oh, I don't know. That was fun though, boxing Tim. I think Tim was going to box somebody else, and it didn't happen. And then he was like, "Can you step in?" And I was like, "All right, let's do this." Because I probably like Tim. I think Tim is one of the like uh unheralded sort of like pillars to certainly independent movies because of the Draft House and everything, and everything he's been doing over the years. And that festival has been really great. So it was a little bit weird to punch him, but it was fun nonetheless.
What is a Mick Garris Masters of Horror dinner like?
Oh, it's pretty cool. I haven't been to one in I don't know if they've had them since COVID. Maybe they have. I'm not sure. I've been to I think 2 or 3 of them over the last 10 years, and I haven't been to one in a long time. But I mean, it's a lot of people sitting at a big table, and a lot of really interesting people just kind of shooting the shit, and everyone's very nice, and it's kind of a room full of people you never really thought you would meet, and then you do. And Mick himself is just like he's a really great guy, and he's so supportive, and it's really cool. He should do one. If he has done one, he should have invited me, but if he hasn't done one, he should do it again, because they are fun. It's been many years.
Will we ever see a feature film version of your web series Dead and Lonely?
No, I don't think so.
If you were given the opportunity to write and direct the project, which horror genre would you like to see Tom Cruise play in, and how do we make this happen?
I don't know how we make it happen, but it would be cool. I don't know. I think it's kind of like I would have to meet Tom Cruise, and I would have to say, "Have you ever thought about doing a horror movie?" And I'm sure he has an answer. And then I would be like, "All right, let's figure out what that movie is." Because I have a feeling that Tom Cruise is opinionated about the things that he wants to do, and motivates himself in that direction. And I just want to know if I can hang in that orbit. I think I can, but I don't know. But he's always, for me, has been like the biggest sort of movie star. And so it's always been this, and he seems to work very hard. And so I just want to know, like, well, what is it like to work with somebody where you're going to give 110% every day for the whole time, down to the level of like you might go to space to make a movie, so it's I'm just intrigued by it all. But he should do a horror movie. He would make a great one, I'm sure.
Yeah. This last question is a Sophie's choice. Two must die so that one may live. The documentary American movie, Joe Dante's The Burbs, or Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Only one gets to live?
Only one gets to live.
I would say that probably American movie should make it through there. Because I think that the I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street is like as good of a horror movie as you can make. The Burbs to me is as funny as a movie can be, and is like I'm incredibly charmed by it. But I think American movie is like a real rare movie where like to some degree American movie is like a funny movie and things like that. But it is as inspired of a movie both as a documentary and as the person in the movie trying to, because making movies is like an absurd thing to do, and it's really weird, and it's really weird to have a life where you try to do it. And that movie encapsulates that really well. And there's such passion from Mark Borchardt, and there's such specific passion. And I know what it's like to have a sort of passion to do that and be around people who are down to help you, but don't have the same passion or don't know what you're talking about until it's done. And the ambition of trying to do that is really unique. And so I think that movie is like profoundly interesting. Like on the surface, it's a funny movie because you're watching like the trials and tribulations of someone trying to make a little horror movie. And like, it works as that level of just being kind of funny what's happening. But it weirdly is actually like that when you try to do it. And so, or you try to do anything creative. And I think that's why I think that movie is like a real, like once in a lifetime kind of movie.
Huh. I did not expect that, but I love your answer. Is there anything you want to ask me before we're done?
Well, I haven't actually watched I got the email when you asked me to do this that you have a sort of a unique deep dive approach to it. So I haven't watched any other interviews to see. I thought about it. I was like, oh, let me go see what it is that you're doing. And then I've just been busy, so I haven't. But but where does all of the deep dive, like where do you start looking for stuff, and what makes you go, what makes you try to figure out where my parents went on their honeymoon? And where is that information?
Well, to answer the first part, everywhere, absolutely everywhere. We scroll to the bottom of the barrel of Instagrams and Twitters. We look for everything. We go on the internet and search, and we find every single interview that someone's in. For your case, we heard from one of your older interviews that you mentioned newspapers, and we looked at every one of them that even had a little bit of your name in it, and we found everything. Okay. That's where we found all that.
Gotcha.
But newspapers for you, and then everywhere for everything else.
Makes sense. Where did you get the photo? Oh, I guess from a newspaper.
No, that's actually different. We found that in your grade school yearbook.
Is that like online?
Yep. We found.
It's like, what does Tatnall have?
We found this online.
So like Tatnall has all their yearbook photos or whatever photos.
I can't even remember the website name, but it's like a website that has like a bunch of yearbooks that people like they Xerox and then post it on there. We found it in one of the many yearbooks in that.
Fascinating. I haven't seen that. My mom might have that photo like in the house somewhere, but otherwise I haven't seen that photo since I was, whatever, third grade or whenever that was taken.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. What?
That was 5th grade.
Yeah, that was 5th grade. That was 5th grade.
Well, you will know. You know better than I do at this point.
Yeah, I do, and don't question it. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. This has been awesome.
Yeah, likewise. I'm sorry I was late.